Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the TexAgs High School Football Show, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Academy has all your high school football road trip needs this season. Get the right gear for the long season with free curbside pickup today at Academy Sports and Outdoors. All right, week 5 of the TexAgs High School Football Show, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Ryan Brauninger and Jason Howell with you, the TexAgs recruiting team, as we get ready to re-examine what we saw last week across the state of Texas, as well as what we will be getting into this week. Really interesting, not an interesting week. It's kind of a blank slate, so to speak, across the state this coming week.
Yeah.
Like 480 something teams are on a bye. It's a big bye week across the state. So I'll be seeing some guys for a second time and maybe some games that I'm hoping will be a little bit closer than maybe they look on paper.
Yeah.
But you just, you gotta go where the kids are, and you don't really get to pick the matchups, Jason. So before we get into that, we'll start with your weekend up there in Dallas.
Well, I hit, I was here in Dallas all weekend. Thursday night, I was in Denton for Denton Ryan, the Colony, and I stayed close to home, Louisville Flower Mound on Friday night. Denton Ryan, man, I'm not going to lie. I had a feeling, Denton Ryan was going to pull it out, and the Colony is a really good opponent. They kind of hit some hard times and lost some close games early in the season. But thought this one was going to be Ryan to pull out, and they got out to a 20-7 halftime lead. But I got to give it to the Colony, man. They clawed back and pulled away. It scored. It ended up pulling it out at the very end for a 27-20 victory. I want to say it was the first time the Colony and Coach Rangel over there has beaten Denton Ryan, and I want to say nearly 2 decades.
Wow.
It was a big win for the Colony. And the grit that they showed was phenomenal. And they got some young playmakers. One of those guys I talked to after the game, Xavier Green, a 26 wide receiver who played a big part in that comeback win. He's a dual sport athlete. He's got a basketball offer from Texas A&M. So we talked a little bit about, how he's the basketball side of things and football and where that's all going. But phenomenal athlete, 6 foot, 170 pounds or 165 pounds or so. But bright future there. The Colony is going to be a tough out for a lot of teams. Look for them to make a push towards the playoffs. Ryan got some questions to answer, especially on the quarterback and at with that overall offense. But I tell you what they do have. They have a couple big time dudes up front. Ty Haywood, the 2025 class at one tackle. He's got everything you're looking for. One of the top in the class. He's mean, he's physical, he's smart, very strong, plays a really disciplined brand of football. And then on the other side, you got Marcus Garcia, another 25, not quite as well known, 6'5", 250. And he is a multiple time All-American, junior Olympian.
Wow.
As a discus thrower. And he's starting to turn some heads, picked up UTSA and Texas Tech in the last few weeks. A guy I got to keep an eye on out there at Denton Ryan. And then on Friday night, Louisville, I got to admit, they pretty much took control of this one from the very beginning. 34-7 win. Flower Mound's got some things to work with, though. When they get in rhythm on offense, they can be really hard to stop. But at the end of the day, Louisville just had too much on defense, and they can strike it up with anybody. It was the 26th win for Louisville's starting quarterback to make him the winningest starting quarterback in Louisville history. So kudos to him. Headed to Jackson State. Been a starter for a long time. I think his freshman year is when he made his first start. So he's been on it for a while, and he's been doing really well at the helm. Very cool to see him earn those honors. Mike Fasusi, big offensive tackle for Louisville, showed everything you want to see out of a top flight offensive tackle. He is the best in that class, rated by us, and he's done nothing for me to change that. He's got all the tools you want, a lot of upside, and he's already a really, really phenomenal football player. Got to see Drew Evers at Flower Mound. More of an interior guy. He was at offensive tackle the whole night, but showed a lot. Real physical, and he when they needed to pick up some yardage, I think their touchdown came running right behind him. He plowed him into the end zone. He's got a bright future. But yeah, it was a great time for me. Got to stay close to home and see a couple of really good ball games.
Man, that 2025 offensive line class in the state of Texas is going to be,
Yeah,
it might be the best I've ever seen. The 2021 group was really good, but man, in terms of just high end tackle depth in 2025, if you're a major college, not even a major, just any football program in the state of Texas, you ought to be able to find some really good tackles
oh yeah,
in that 2025 class. And speaking of, I started my travels last week going down to Cypress to see Bridgeland take on Langham Creek in one of those, really two of those 2025 tackles. The
yeah,
main one I was there to see was Jonte Newman, but also the guy starting now across from him at right tackle, Ryan Fodgy.
yeah,
Just picked up an Oklahoma offer, 6'5", 275 pounds. And Jonte Newman, you mentioned Fasusi being our top guy in the class. I think that's very much warranted. But, I mean, when you're talking about who's in that top group, I think Jonte Newman's like steadily edging himself in
okay,
that direction. Just in extremely good feet, good frame, plays through the whistle, doesn't take
hmm,
plays off. And I think when you're evaluating young offensive linemen, I think them just being able to overpower people and lean on people is one thing, but when you see them
yeah,
play with consistent effort and they don't take plays off, I think that means that they've just kind of got another level to their game, and they may be more ready to take that college jump than others
yeah,
that will have to learn that, right? But Jonte was awesome. Bridgeland just ran away and left Langham Creek. Did a good job of limiting Langham Creek tight end Jordan Washington, who's committed to Texas. Limited him to very few touches in the game. Their defense just didn't give Langham Creek any time to do anything, and then offensively they just pounded the rock, and there was nothing Langham Creek could do about it. I think I don't even remember the finals. It was like 57-14 or
mm,
something like that. Just
yeah,
Lonnie Madison's got a really good team this year, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up with some of these Houston area playoff teams when they get in those early rounds, um,
hmm,
because then they start going to Dallas, right? Because they're in Region 2, and so
hmm,
that's the region that's split between South Dallas and North Houston. So some of those kind of those between cities games will be really interesting because I think Bridgeland can stay around because they just play a real safe brand of football. They run the ball and they play good defense. So it'll be an interesting group to follow there for Lonnie Madison in his first year with the Bears. And then on Friday, headed down to Port Neches and saw the rematch, or the much anticipated rematch from last year. Port Neches Groves hosting Fort Bend Marshall. And when you look at the game on paper, Fort Bend Marshall, clearly the more talented squad, but those games aren't played on paper, right? They're played,
yeah,
and in terms of PNG, they're played in front of a lot of people in a really cool atmosphere down there in Southeast Texas, just right off the Neches River and at the refinery, near the refineries down there. But just a defensive slugfest, man. And PNG without their starting quarterback for a few more weeks, and so they're having to get kind of creative on offense. They're starting a sophomore, and they lean on that big giant offensive line. They had one last year that they leaned on all the way to the state finals. They're probably going to try to do that again, at least until Shea Adams returns from injury. So
yeah,
they scored in the third quarter on a 13-yard run, and that was it all night. So their defense, and they don't have like a real standout, just the collective effort of PNG's defense was really something to watch because they were outmanned in terms of athletes, but they weren't outmanned in terms of execution and effort and
yeah.
grit and toughness. And they really limited Fort Bend Marshall to maybe 2 or 3 big plays on the night, and
Yes.
that was it.
That
Uh,
says something right there. That's
yeah.
huge. Yeah.
And Fort Bend Marshall struggled at quarterback. Unlike that, I mean, I haven't seen them struggle that way at quarterback in a long time, but a lot of that could be due to the PNG defense. And what really hurt them was Andre Feast, one of their talented 2025 receivers, going
Mhm.
out around halftime with a shoulder injury. And I don't know how long he'll be out, but it's going to be a while. And on the other side, Fort Bend Marshall's defense, I mean, there's something to say for when you hold a team just to 7 points.
Yeah,
That says something about your defense. And I'm going to tell you this, and I text you after the game or
yeah,
maybe toward the end of the game. That 2026 safety they got, Isaiah Williams, it's too early to be making top player list in that class. But
yeah,
if we were going to, I'd probably stand on the table for him being the number one player in the state right now in that class. He is just off the charts good, super advanced in his feel of the game. He likes getting in the box and mixing it up. And he just flies across the field, man. You just don't see sophomores at safety play kind of in fast forward the way he does. He's super impressive. And I think A&M will have a great shot down the road to maybe eventually land him, but he's going to have every offer in the country. And they got a chance. The Fort Bend Marshall staff, who's seen just incredible players over the last decade or so, they all talk about, this kid could be the best defensive prospect we've had here in a long, long time. But P&G was a story of the night. That was a top 10 showdown. Coach Jeff Joseph beats Fort Bend Marshall 2 times in a row. Not many programs outside of Aledo walking around the state of Texas that can say they beat Fort Bend Marshall in back-to-back meetings. So huge win for P&G. They vault up the rankings in there in 5A Division II and now have the inside track for the district championship down there. So that was my games. Jason, any other results in Dallas really stick out for you?
I tell you what, the Frisco, the Battle of Frisco, Wakeland and Frisco Lone Star came down to the wire. I think there's a turnover in the final minute when Wakeland could have been kneeling out the clock. And Lone Star pulls out the 35-31 win. And what, is going to be a close district race with them and those two teams in Reedy. So Lone Star.
Hey, how about Frisco Emerson? Yeah. Frisco Emerson, number 2 in the state in 5A Division II.
Hey, man, they've got some players, man. That's Mike Hawkins. That's the Hawkins brothers, Malik, a heck of a ball player as well. They've got some players out there at Emerson. That is a newer high school. It's in a different district. So they're competing at a little different level, but they're not to be slept on. They came on big last fall, and they're definitely one to watch. And I got to say, McKinney North, another big win in district, 31-26 over Tyler High. That gives them a win over Lancaster and Tyler High now. They're right there with Longview at the top of that district right about now. So, those were the two that really stuck out to me for sure.
Some results in Houston and even further. I got one team that we're going to shout out, an area that we haven't talked about much, but around Houston, I think Pearland beating Shadow Creek was a pretty noteworthy result. Knocked Shadow Creek out of the rankings. Big win for Coach Gott there at Pearland. Iowa Colonies, we mentioned Frisco Emerson. Iowa Colony is a new school kind of in that Roche-Sharon, Manville area.
A lot of talent,
blowing up in terms. You go drive down there, there's just developments everywhere. They make their debut as a school in the top 10 in 4A Division I. Another school making their debut, and it's a school that I've talked about quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but I know I talked about them last week. But they made their first appearance in the top 25 in 6A was the Katy Jordan Warriors. They beat Katy Pato on Saturday night and now they're number 25 in the state in 6A. Big one this week. They got to take on the real test, which is Katy this week. So it'll be tough, but really good roster, really talented roster. They throw the ball around. They play a fun style. So team to keep an eye on. And then how about a shout out to the PSJA North Raiders? We have not talked we haven't talked about the Valley, but they beat Edinburgh Vela in probably the best game in the Valley in South Texas. They're the two best teams down there. And PSJ North comes away with a victory and remains in the top 10 there in 5A Division I. So shout out to the Raiders, PSJ North. We don't talk about the Valley enough, so I had to give a shout out to
that's some really good football down there.
I bet the rivalries down there are awesome.
Oh, man. I mean, there's so many Harlingen, all of it. I mean, there's so many great teams down there that are fun to watch. They play really good brands of football, a lot of great coaching down there.
All right, where are you headed this week?
Well, I'm going Thursday. It's Terry Bussey Day. Yeah. I'm going out to Terry Bussey's announcement. Don't know where he's going, but A&M's been up there high on his list, and I'm headed out that direction. And if if A&M's the pick, I think I may just stick out there for Friday's game against San Augustine, sorry. And if he doesn't, maybe I head on over to Shreveport Evangel, see a little Gabriel Relaford, watch him rack up about 30 tackles in a game for a defensive lineman.
I mean, you've been all over. You've been to Texas, Oklahoma, or Georgia, Florida, Alabama. So why not add Louisiana to your list if you're just making the rounds this year? But on Thursday night, I'm going to go down to Pridgeon Stadium in Cypress, see Cy-Fair take on Jersey Village. Cy-Fair led by 2025 defensive lineman Landon Rink. He's so much fun to watch. Really like a bull in the china closet watching that guy play. And then the next night, I'm going to go see another bull in a china closet as the Belleville Brahmas play host to the Columbia Roughnecks, going to see 2025 Belleville defensive tackle DJ Sanders, one of my favorite players to watch in the state.
That's one of you were on him early.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He is a big, nimble human being and could just turn into one of those game wreckers on the defensive interior at the next level. He's been super impressive every time I've watched him. So want to get down there and see with my own two eyes. I haven't seen him as a junior, so get down there and see him and Coach Grady Rowe there in Belleville. The Pasture Pain, baby. One of the greatest names of a Texas high school football field. Yeah, in the state. So you're going to be full with doing commitment stuff on Thursday, or tracking a commitment on Thursday. And then we'll kind of see where you go from there. Don't forget Kay Drawn, our recruiting assistant in South Houston. I believe he's going to go see Atascocita on Thursday, play host to Beaumont Westbrook. And then on Friday, let me see if I can remember. He talked about, I can't remember where he's going on.
Is he slow to schedule his games this week?
No. He's not slow at all. I just can't remember. We were texting about it. I'm going to pull it up right now so I don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
On Friday night, he is going to Crosby to see the Crosby Cougars host the Port Arthur Memorial Titans and that loaded roster for Brian Morgan, that loaded underclass group that he's got there at Port Arthur Memorial. So for Jason Howell, I'm Ryan Brauninger. Be careful on the road if you're going out to watch games, and thanks for tuning in to the TexAgs High School Football Show.